Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. We're recording it once again live here on Twitch, so it's Sunday and everyone's calling me a liar. So I do have some videos under the stream this week, unlike last week. I managed to get a few things, especially with the confirmed announcement of the delay of 15. It was funny because in the last Monday video, I was like, they're not going to delay that. There's some sources saying they will, they won't, it's not going to happen. It ended up happening. So one of those videos is going over also one of the new gameplay features that they showed. So there's more time for Final Fantasy count up, essentially was what it means. On the live stream, I've finished 7 and 8 almost since last week. I'll be finishing 8 on Monday. So, well, basically the day that you on YouTube will be seeing this. So, yeah, finished 7 and 8 pretty quick. 8 was really fast. 8 basically took a day a disc, and that was all that it really needed. Disc 4, if I was streaming longer, I maybe could have finished it, but meh, I'm in no rush. I'm probably going to beat Omega Weapon just for the hell of it. But anyway, those are all the real big things. One big announcement, however, this Tuesday, I'm actually going to be flying up to San Francisco to join Square Enix at the Razer store, and we're going to be streaming Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Now, I've gotten some time with that game, some personal time with that game, and it's really good. It's been getting really good reviews, so we're going to be playing it from 5 p.m. PDT to about 8:30 p.m. PDT, and that's going to be over on the Square Enix Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/Square Enix. So I'll try to remember to include a link to that in the description of the YouTube video. Those of you watching on Twitch, just go follow them now so you can watch us on Tuesday. That means there won't be a live stream. It also means that State of the Realm will be Wednesday this week, which means on YouTube, it won't be on YouTube till Thursday. So keep that in mind. But anyway, guys, that's the big announcement. There's also, damn, I got more big announcements. You know what I almost forgot? I'm going to GameStop Expo on September 14th. That's in the Anaheim area. That's in Anaheim. So if you're in the Anaheim area on September 14th, go to that. If you're here in the Twitch chat, type !Expo to get more information. And come hang out at the expo. It's going to be good times. I'm looking to cover whatever games they got there. And I've heard good things. I heard a lot of really good things about GameStop Expo last year from the friends that went. So looking forward to going there myself this year. Okay, those are all the big announcements. Now let's move on to the Q&A. We do have a video question this week, so we're going to start with that.
Hey, Apps Phil Lowlight here, long time viewer, first time video asker. So as a bonus, I have 2 weeks of law cap. I've got 2 questions for you this week. Now that you've watched Kingslave, the master footage of 15, as well as the 4 episodes of the anime, what do you think of the 15 universe as a whole? And secondly, when you get your hands on 15 in November, what are you most looking forward to trying out or seeing? Cheers.
All right, so first of all, 2 very good questions. The first one, I'm glad you're asking me about the 15 universe as a whole, as opposed to just what I thought of Kingsglaive, because I would rather do that separately and spoiler-free. It's hard to talk about Kingsglaive spoiler-free, though, because there's a lot of very specific things I like to refer to, but I'll find a way to do it. The 15 universe as a whole, they're doing a good job at making me care. I think that's the most important aspect. Most Final Fantasy games develop that sort of sense of making you care about that world within the game itself, whereas Final Fantasy 15 sort of priming me or preparing me to be prepared for that world. And it's working because they're showing a world where it's incredibly normal for these incredible creatures to exist alongside of people, and it's just they're just kind of separated in terms of nature. And there's all these sort of mystical powers, and then there's the conflict is very real. I'm invested in the conflict, and I'm invested in the friendship between the main characters nowadays. I've grown more and more accepting of the whole, hey, we're 4 friends. I'm going to do this thing, and these are my 3 friends who are coming along with me. It starts to make more and more sense the more you know about the beginning, especially after you've watched Kingsglaive, especially in Final Fantasy 15. So I'm invested in Final Fantasy 15's world. The second question there was, what was it? I can't even remember. Hold on, let me listen to it again. All right, and the second part of that question was, what am I most looking forward to trying out and seeing? Honestly, I want to see more of the summoning system, because they said that the way that we tested it in Diskai was not representative of the way it would work in the actual game. They just needed sort of a way to fit it in, and there's been so many combat updates between the assist systems and the way that you change weapons in combat and the way that combat flows and the wait mode. There's so many things that have changed since we've gotten our hands on the initial summoning system, where it was just like, hey, you're almost dead, here's this super awesome summon for you, and bam. I want to see how it actually works in the game, because they said that that's not they're not going to be like that one-shot territory kind of thing. And on top of that, they're not just going to be a, hey, when I'm about to die, this is a save me button. They're not going to be that way in the full game. We'll see if what they actually transition into when the full game comes out. All right, with that out of the way, let's move on over to the forum questions. Yay, first poster. Hello, mister. Hello to you. After this current yokai event is over, I don't think I ever want to deal with yokai again. I don't blame you on that front. I know fate grinding has dropped, fate grinding 4 drops has been a thing in the past, but this event leaves me with an increased feeling of urgency because of its limited availability. I feel like I have to spend some time every day grinding for at least 2 hours or so. This frustration feeling of urgency has left me very uninterested in yokai now, and honestly, it's not the creators of yokai's fault, but the damage is done. Thoughts? I don't know. I mean, that's just fates. Like, this makes me feel like you may or may not have, oh, I guess you said for the limited availability, but I mean, 2 months is, it's limited, but 2 hours a day for 2 months, you'd be done in a couple of weeks at that rate. Even with bad RNG, it probably wouldn't take too much more than 2.5, 3 weeks. You probably do it even faster than that. But I get it. I don't feel like it makes sense to really hate yokai because of that. I feel like it makes more sense to just not want to do fates because of that. You know what I mean? All right, next question. Hello. What do you think about the idea of adding achievements for beating raiding content world for a server first and displaying it server-wide once obtained? Do you think it would add to the experience for groups to go for world prog? I recall World of Warcraft might have something similar. I think World of Warcraft has server. I don't think they have world. I don't know that it's possible for them to display that across the entire world. That being said, I do agree with server first achievements for people. I also feel like server first or any sort of change in the world after a raid has been server firsted, I always felt like that had a lot of impact, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense with the multiple tiers of difficulty, because of I think you know what I mean when you have multiple tiers of difficulty, because it's a fictional fight within the universe itself, so it doesn't have as much impact. But I'm always a fan of server-first announcements. I'm also always a fan of raid achievements for beating fights in unconventional ways. Like, I don't know, in A6, defeat the Vortexer. I don't know. I can't even think of anything. I'm like, you know what I mean though, like raid achievements that ask you to do something very specific that you wouldn't like, defeat turn 2 without the enrage strat. Technically, I would prefer it to be an achievement where beat him during the enrage, but the enrage is so easy that no one really cares. Just things that make the fights harder, and they allow players to kind of reach outside the boundaries of what the fight is asking them to do and challenge themselves in a new way. I always appreciate achievements like that. So not only would I like these achievements, I'd like achievements, defeat it with 8 warriors. Easy, donezo. All right, next question. AYYY. Oh, sorry. Forget the set of Japanese keyboard off, but I let this in for curiosity's sake. By the way, it means A. I actually knew that, believe it or not. I knew that meant A because of the YYY. So that's as someone who speaks English as their primary and only language, whenever I see YYY or whenever I'm like reading another language, I always just look for that one hint that's like in English that I can understand. And YYY was pretty obvious in this case. After 3 years, I try to return to something familiar, and again, only pick one. Okay, so I get to pick one of 3 questions. It can either be about Crisis Core, Advent Children, or After Years. I haven't played After Years, so I'm not going to pick that. I'm going to go with Advent Children. Do you think Square Enix will remake the whole main series of Final Fantasy? Okay, so this was just bait. I don't even think that this had anything to do with it. I guess this one did have to do with Final Fantasy VII, kind of. And then this is Final Fantasy VX, which doesn't exist, but I get what you're saying. Just about remaking different things. Do you think they'll remake the whole series? No. I feel like they'll remake the big hits. They're not going to remake, like, 2. And when I say remake, by the way, I mean remake, like, 7 remake. They'll probably remake, honestly, Final Fantasy 1 for the 30-year anniversary. I would be surprised if they didn't do another, like, 30-year anniversary edition of Final Fantasy 1. Hey, Curse, what are you doing? You popping up sounds for me right now. I'm in the middle of stuff. You guys didn't hear it, but I heard it. It annoyed the hell out of me. So anyway, no, I think they'll remake 6, 8, 4, maybe 9. I don't see them ever remaking 10 or 12. I don't see a point. Those games aren't they aren't so like graphically in the past that they need to be remade. They just kind of need to be touched up. So 6 and 8, 6 and 8 are like high on the list. 6, 8, 9, and 4 are the only other ones I would see them remaking probably. All right, next question. Hey, Happy, first time asker here. So as a bonus, have a Final Fantasy X remake. What did we just say that wasn't going to happen? I can't even believe that came up in the next question from a different person. As a fellow monk main, I'm sure you've noticed how bad our gear has consistently looked through nearly... No, I've actually liked monk's gear through nearly every patch and expansion. I've always been a big fan of the monk gear. It's a bit demoralizing to me, and especially the kettles, dude. How do you feel about it being able to glamour across class? I don't know. I don't feel like we need really many cross-class glamour restrictions like they kind of state. I think it's a little overstated how that's a thing or it's a concern. I don't think it needs to be, and I'm perfectly okay with them allowing it at some point. I agree that the extreme cases of it, like maybe a white mage wearing paladin armor, is maybe a little bit meh, but only restricting it to job, I'm not a fan of. I think they definitely have some wiggle room there, because I already see tanks and bikinis. Like, what the hell? At that point, does it really matter? Do you really even have an argument anymore in that case? I'm just surprised that you don't like the look of monk gear. I like the look of a lot of monk gear. All right, next question. Hi, Mr. Happy. First time asker, so take a character from any Final Fantasy as a minion. Maybe I'll take a Cloud minion. Why not? Because that way I can always have him. His emote can be, instead of his like victory emote, it can be when he goes and he like grabs his head and starts freaking out. Let's see. I main Bard and I'd like to think I'm a decent player. With Warden's Peen, I tend to use it if I get debuffed or on another player. But I was in a dungeon a couple weeks ago and the tank asked me to use it for his Berserk. Now, I never had to look out for this and never know to use it. I asked them to let me know when I should use it, but they didn't. Usually, most tanks have a macro to let the healer know when to Asuna. And he called me lazy and quickly left before he could explain. It's the best. I'd like to be the best I can, but I don't know tank abilities. My question is, when should I use my ability? So, with tanks... Berserk is this is very common. This is probably the most frequent use of Warden's Peen in endgame, is using it on Berserks. And a lot of warriors don't like macroing Berserk, mostly because of it can really mess with the input delay that it has. So a lot of the time, it's just a matter of looking for the Berserk debuff. You identify what the Berserk debuff is. Some bards also use Advanced Combat Tracker, and they make a ping for it. Like whenever a warrior uses Berserk in their party, it pings them and says, "Hey, he just used Berserk," so they know to use it. It takes a bit of practice getting used to identifying Berserk on the hotbar, or asking a monk to actually use their a monk. Asking the warrior to actually use a macro, but that's pretty much what you're going to want to look out for. All right, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, first time asker, so please take the solar-powered flashlight as a bonus. That is a very interesting prize. I like flashlights, though. I'll take it. Thank you. My question is in regards to the current penalties for players, mainly tanks, who abandon leveling roulettes within the first few seconds. Cutter's Cry, I'm looking at you. When I shoot the penalty currently in place that the tank is punished by being suspended from queuing for more duties, then the lack of a tank is holding up 3 other players from playing. My question is, do you think Yoshi P and C would ever consider adjusting the punishment to be more in line with punishing only the offensive player? I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't take away tombstones, you can't de-level them, you can't incur a guild cost, because then things get a little bit crazy there. No, I mean, here's the thing. If that person's just going to leave the dungeon anyway, then it's not like Square Enix is punishing those 3 people. They're punishing the dude because he wanted to get that leveling roulette, but now he doesn't get to have it. Because, like, you're taking a tank out of the roulette, but he's going to leave any dungeon that's even remotely bothersome if he's someone who does that already. So it doesn't actually help the issue in any way, shape, or form. I don't know. I don't think there really is much of a solution for this. In fact, we were just talking about last week how we think that they should make the penalty longer to discourage it more often. So if somebody's actually going to do it, they're gonna friggin' do the whole dungeon. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't think there's really much of a solution in this case, unless they fill it with an NPC. That's it. That's the only solution I got for you. Fill it with an NPC if the tank leaves until another tank joins. Just a tank that just runs through the dungeon, pulls like one mob and then stops, then kills. Just that, like the most basic bitch NPC tank that has like no intelligence whatsoever. Alright, next question. Sup, Paps? Yo, what's up, my man? Yo, hope you're doing well, sir. I am. Starting to feel a little bit better today. Still a bit congested. stomach hurt a little bit today, but that's all right. That's all right. With Rise of Iron coming out, is that really September? For some reason, I thought that was this month. Huh. Destiny is a different experience than what we got of vanilla. The game is much improved. King's Fall raid surpassed everyone's expectations with its mechanics for finally getting private matches along with the new raid. Quite enjoyed your PvP streams back when the game came out. Have you thought about giving it another try? So I have a motto when it comes to Destiny. It's the first $60 I spent on the game didn't pay for itself. It wasn't worth it. I don't want to spend another $60 just to get the game that I paid for in the first place. Which is essentially what happened with all of the expansion packs that ended up coming out. So I don't want to say no, because I do like Destiny. I love the gunplay in Destiny. But at the same time, it's like, would I really play it that much? Would I really enjoy it that much again? And even if I did enjoy it, I wouldn't want to spend more money on it. I mean, and that's the thing. When I say that, people go, well, you don't know how many people I've said, hey, I'll just get you a copy of it. And I'm like, shit. Shit. I can't just say I don't want to spend the money, because so many people have offered, yeah, I'll just buy you the expansions. Then I'll be like, shit. That's pretty much everything how it ended up working. I don't know. I don't want to say no, because I always like the possibility to be there, but it's unlikely. It's kind of like with Legion. Legion, it's like, I have a respect for Legion and I want to see how it pans out, but the amount of time I'd be able to put into Legion is so little that I'd probably just be one other person complaining. And if I'm gonna be that person complaining, I'm not gonna play it in the first place, because it's not fair complaining. It's like, oh, I can't get this done, I can't get that done. It's like, no shit, you can't get it done, because you're spending your time doing other things, or you're working on other things, or you also have another responsibility you have to take care of. It's like, of course you're not gonna get it done, but I don't want to be that guy who can't get it done and then complain about it. So I'd rather just kind of watch what it does and see how it ends up shaping sort of World of Warcraft, if it's something that's well received, not well received, because that's going to mean a lot, especially with 7.1 confirmed as Return to Karazhan, but it's a 5-man 9+ boss mythic thing. I just want to see how it pans out, because they're trying, again, new things. I always like to see new things tried. I just got to see if they succeed or if they fail, and I'm going to be watching pretty closely for that one. All right, next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. I hope you're having a great week. I've been sick this week, man. It's been pretty shitty. I have all the legendary medals that I'm not going to get for the yokai event. Thank you. Here are my questions. One, I read they are planning to set the proper accuracy requirements for Stone Sky Sea. Do you think an active Stone Sky Sea will be added in the future for tanks? They need one for tanks and healers, to be honest. And I think they said they want to do that. The only problem they're having is the best way to replicate that is to... is that they need to... They feel like it's not really preparing you for that individual fight if it's not actually performing the mechanics. I think it would be worthwhile to have Stone Sky Sea dummies maybe use tank busters or hit an NPC or something, or target like an enemy that's not you and hit them while you're trying to DPS them, so you can balance between the two and also try to beat it. Yes, I would love to have something, a more active Stone Sky Sea for tanks and healers. 2, in Palace of the Dead, I'm having some trouble because I mostly play matched parties. In general, 1/3 of the time I get a party that is going to fail the duty, not necessarily because of job composition, because some players like to go solo all the time. How would you improve Palace of the Dead, make it a teaching tool for new players? I mean, anything where, Diadem learned this, any place where you give people freedom, people are going to be assholes. At some point or another, not everyone, but there's always going to be some people that just have their own agenda, their own plan, and it just doesn't match what actually is useful for getting the job done. So it's, I don't know. I don't think there's really too much they can do in this case to improve that directly, that aspect of it directly. I just think that it's up to, it's a risk you take. It's the same risk you take every time you jump into the duty finder, but it's just a little bit, it's a little bit steeper strictly because of the, strictly because it's you're allowed to just go wherever you want as long as you complete the floor. So unless you want them to make it so it's one straight path, I don't see many other ways for them to really enhance it and make it more reliable when you're playing with completely random people. 3, I'm a PC gamer, but I'm planning to buy a PS4. Is there a right order to play Final Fantasy games? No, but most people will recommend, if you're going to play them, be sure to play 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those are like, those bunch are generally considered great examples of different parts of Final Fantasy. 4 for the story, 5 for the job system, 6 for the villain, as well as the very broad amount of stories that are available 7 because it was just a trendsetter back on the PlayStation 1. 8 because it's... I don't really have a good reason for it. 8 because it shows how they made advancements from 7 to 8 graphically. 9 just because it's a solid game. And 10 because it was the first game on the PlayStation 2. And again, a trendsetter for that era. So those are all great ones to play. 1, 2, and 3 you don't have to really delve into. 12 is hit or miss for some people. And 13 is really hit or miss for some people, especially the sequels. So 4, 6, 7 would be the highest tier I would recommend. And then 5, 8, 9, 10 if you have... I'm sorry, 5, 8... and 9, 7, and 10 were up there too. 4, 6, 7, 10 are the highest tier, and then 5, 8, 9 would be kind of where my middle tier stands in terms of getting a new player to try it out. And 4, when is Firefinger coming? No idea. 5, is there a way to play MP3 songs? Yeah, buy an iPod. That's it. And thank you for the questions. All right, next question. Hey Haps, I hope you're doing great today. Today is indeed a good day. First time asker, so take these freshly baked cookies. Yes, cookies. I hope you like raisins. I can do cinnamon raisin. I have 3 questions today. So for the first one, a bit of background. I got rejected by Static because I'm playing with PS4. I do think I'm quite well on my Scholar, even though I'm playing with a controller and not keyboard and mouse. I already cleared A6 Savage with my free company. So I'm searching for Static from Midas. And since my FC is kind of slow, I'm on a private server and finding people is pretty hard. So should I swap to the keyboard and mouse? You don't need to. It's always a matter of how well you utilize the tool. I know some raid groups deny PS4 players not because of skill or because they perceive their skill as lower, but because sometimes when they want to raid, having that extra factor of having to deal with PlayStation Network potentially being down, which I've seen happen to a lot of people in different raid groups. Sometimes they just don't want to deal with that as a factor. That's really more on the super high end and doesn't sound like that's what you're queuing for. So anyone being particular about you being a PS4 player is being a little hard-headed, in my opinion, because I've played with controller players, I played with PS4 players, and I know plenty of good ones. So I don't see that as really a reason to switch to keyboard and mouse, because you know what? They'll probably still go PS4 player. Because how are they going to know? Like, what are you going to tell them? It's like, oh, you're going to go back to that group. I play keyboard and mouse now. I guarantee you they still say, yeah, but you're still on the PlayStation 4. Like, it's ridiculous. Anyone who's doing that, honestly, you probably don't want to be a part of that group in the first place. Second question. Let's say we get a new healer, tank, and DPS job with the new expansion. What jobs would you like to see? I've answered this quite a few times. Puppet Master is always my number 1 on the list regardless, but Samurai, Red Major, likely. Samurai, as far as I'm concerned, it's all but confirmed. Red Mage is still kind of borderline iffy. And then I don't know about a third one. I honestly think we're only going to see 2 jobs. 2 jobs in the expansion, but I'd happily be surprised with a third one. I just I don't know if they'll do that. I'm really curious to see what they'll do. And last but not least, the last question right here. When are you going to make guides for the rest of Mighty Savage? I don't know. I finished making the A6 Savage guide and never posted it. I was never happy with it. And honestly, a lot of the work that goes into the farthest raids, like 7 and 8, the amount of time that has to go into those is pretty immense, and that kind of time has become less and less available to me, and I'm also at times less willing to make time for things like that. I like doing the dungeon guides. I like doing occasional class or job update, videos or brief guides on like, oh, here's a really basic rotation to get you started. If you need something advanced, there's these resources here and there. But Midas Savage, it's like I didn't raid this tier, and I'm just finishing A8 Savage like this week, most likely. So it's a maybe. It's an I might put it out, but I can't give you a guaranteed when. So that's the best that I can do. If you have questions about those, I'm always willing to answer them, but because I know all the fights pretty well. It's just that the making of the guides is less like that. Commentaries for the later endgame fights are more likely than a full-on guide from this point on, most likely. All right, and the last question on the forums before we do some questions over on the Twitch chat. Hey, Happy, first time here posting a question, so take a breakfast sandwich made by Ignis as a bonus. God, those things look so good. So good. Anyway, regarding 15, I saw your reaction to the 50 minutes of gameplay, but I wanted to get some deeper opinions on what you thought about some of the character development. The individual grids to spend AP for each character look interesting, even though we saw 3 of Noctis' abilities, leaves me excited to see what possibilities. I mean, the AP system, there's a lot of systems people compare it to. The sphere grid is, of course, one of the big ones. It even reminds me of Final Fantasy 13's, though less linear, because Final Fantasy 13's did look kind of similar. It didn't have as much freedom as what looked to be in the Final Fantasy 15 one. I don't know. The character development, it looks like they really want to remind people that Final Fantasy has always been a lot about developing your characters and unlocking skills. I mean, think about, like, I've been playing through all the old Final Fantasies, and everybody kind of takes the same approach in a sense that, how can I make my character strong enough to take on the next boss? Or how can I make this character play the way I want them to play? Or I'm not touching that character because they're kind of forced into a set, or I don't like the way that character talks or looks or interacts. So there's always a lot of reason, but when it comes down to the combat, it's always pretty simple unless you're doing super bosses. It's usually buff yourself up with whatever spell. If the boss has some sort of weakness, abuse it. Otherwise, you just attack. You know what I mean? It's never been about super engaging gameplay with Final Fantasy. It's always been about how you get your characters to eventually have the skills you want them to have, play the way you want them to play, and the stories that that are there from beginning to end. So I think they kind of want to go back to that. So they have all these systems, or they're bringing back all these systems and systems that we recognize from before, between weapon upgrades with Sid. Lots of mini games with things like chocobo racing and fishing. What else do you have? Big open worlds with travel enemies out in that world, large dangerous enemies that you wonder, how the hell am I going to fight this? A lot of things that are very Final Fantasy-esque, and I think they want to hit home with that one. And I think that's why they keep saying that, like, they looked at the old Final Fantasy games to kind of determine what were effective things to pursue back when they were talking at Final Fantasy Uncovered. And I think that we saw a lot of that in the gameplay. I definitely see some performance issues in that 50 minutes of gameplay that they could shore up. And it makes me kind of a little relieved that they're not settling and that they're just trying to do those last second improvements with those extra 2 months. And I'm really looking forward to what we'll have in the end. With that out of the way, I'm going to answer some questions on Twitch. So Twitch chat, ask your questions, ask away with your questions, and we'll see how many of them we can get through. All right, so the first question we have, hey Haps, we're more than halfway through Final Fantasy Count Up, and we've seen a lot of different systems from one game to another, in combat, leveling, ability, learning, etc. Are there any such systems you especially loved, any that seemed interesting but needed something different to be good, or any you just wanted the world to forget forever? The junction system, the draw system is one I want the world to forget forever, and the Final Fantasy II one, the old school D&D style, is another one that I would never want to see in another Final Fantasy game. So I think the junction system is a good idea. Junctioning spells in order to affect your armor and your resistances. I liked that. It's just that the draw system and how long it was, for lack of a better word, and I need to do this pun right here, drawn out. It kind of just, by the time you're strong enough to care about it, you're sick of it because you've just been friggin' drawing spells the entire game. And it's like, I don't want to do that anymore. I really, really don't want to do this anymore. I can't think of a better way, really, to put it. So I think that would be a system I would actually like to see refined in like a Final Fantasy VIII Remake. But the Final Fantasy VI way of leveling, I've always loved. You can level as much as you want and power up your characters, and you'll be able to get through the game just fine. But if you take sort of a minimalistic approach and you do your leveling later in the game, or you only get levels that are necessary, as long as you have the right espers equipped, you can pretty much get through the game with any character, with decent stats, with amazing stats, actually, with even better stats than you would have otherwise had. And there's an obvious trade-off there. The other thing with that, though, is that it kind of makes their personal abilities less impactful, minus Gao and his rages, and a few other things, actually. So there were some pros and cons to 6's, but Final Fantasy VI's progression has always been a favorite of mine, and I'll always be happy to revisit that game and play through it in a similar fashion, just because I enjoy it so much. The next question that's coming from Twitch, I stopped playing Final Fantasy XIV at the start of Heavensward. What compelling content is there that would persuade me to return? Well, persuasion, I don't know if persuading is the right word. There's content, there's more story, there's newer fights, I personally feel Might of Savage is very well designed bosses, as much as it's still kind of giving people a lot of trouble. There's also new things like the Aquapolis, there's Palace of the Dead. There's been more housing available, there'll be even more housing available. PvP seasons is another one. We're going to be seeing the implementation of dueling, of custom matches, of just a bunch of things along the lines, spectator modes, all those kind of things for PvP. So PvP's seen quite a bit of revitalization. But ultimately, if you're looking for something compelling is something that's completely different than what the game has defined as normal in the past. So it's really hard to consider any of it compelling, because no matter what, Final Fantasy XIV is Final Fantasy XIV, and that didn't change. So a lot of the key things that make that game what it is are still there. And with that in mind, it can be hard to say, hey, this is a reason you should play again. Ultimately, it comes down to, do you miss the world? Do you miss the mechanics of the game? Do you miss playing those things with friends? Or are there any sort of story or anything you're looking forward to catching up on? Because those are probably the best thing. And apologies for leaving the question on screen. I completely forgot about that. That being said, I'm not going to edit that out. So, I mean, that's the best answer I could personally think to get. All right, the next question from Twitch. What made you go back to A Realm Reborn after 1.0? Final Fantasy. It's a really, really easy question. Final Fantasy. That is it. That is my answer. That, and it was completely unheard of. I was an MMO nut, and the idea of them taking a game and rebuilding it from scratch, I needed to see that, because that was going to be an experience that no one would forget, or everyone would, or it would haunt them till the end of time. And either way, I just had to see what it was that they were planning on doing. So that was the reason. Yeah, so that's my answer. All right, so the next question we have from the Twitch chat is, do you have a long-term plan on your career choice as a content producer? So first of all, content producer, great term for it. I always say creator, but I guess producer, creator, broadcaster, any of those work. It depends on if you're making YouTube videos or if you're doing Twitch streams. I've been doing a lot more Twitch streams. I've always enjoyed both YouTube and Twitch. I enjoy making videos, and I enjoy live streaming. The thing that's eventually came to be kind of obvious to me was that Twitch broadcasting, I feel better when I broadcast on Twitch, when I'm constantly interacting with people who are watching and enjoying the broadcast, as opposed to on YouTube, where I produce this thing, I put it out there, and I read a few comments, and I really do like and appreciate the comments that I read that are like, they have some level of feedback, or they have or they're compliments or something. But there's just there's like a disconnect there between YouTube and Twitch. So in terms of where the channel goes, you've already seen it moving more towards not just Final Fantasy XIV and not just YouTube, or not with YouTube not as powerful as an impact. And that's really a big thing. That's really a big thing, is I don't want to be stuck on those things. I want to be able to see where the trends are and move towards them. So it's a very vague answer, but I am working with other companies more often. I'd like to, I guess, maybe travel a little bit more, get to meet, get to go to events more, like recording that Deus Ex commercial for Walmart that I told you guys about, or going to San Francisco to play Deus Ex this Tuesday, or going to the GameStop Expo for a day, on top of, going to PAX West and streaming from there, or doing, and then going to TwitchCon and finding out new information there, and expanding what I know, expanding what the stream can access, expanding the community. Also with Twitch just recently acquiring Curse, like I'm hoping that means for our Curse channel, there's going to be a lot of new things, and just making sure that I'm staying up to date with things. And I'm pretty bad at that. To be honest, I'm pretty friggin' awful at it. I'm the kind of person who's like, oh, another thing. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then eventually I'm like, I should have fucking just done it. What am I doing? What am I doing? So I know it's a very vague answer. It lacks specifics, but if you're looking for specifics, Final Fantasy 15 is going to be a big one. World of Final Fantasy. But then on top of that, things that aren't Final Fantasy, Pokemon is going to be a big one. Sun and Moon. That's not really going to be much on YouTube because I'm not a Nintendo ambassador. That's really going to be a Twitch side only thing. With Count Up, we're going to have all the Final Fantasies on the channel. We're going to have some compilations there as well. And I'd like to get into a few more multiplayer games, but we'll see where that goes. There's a few other things I'd like to try out, but I'm someone who gets really nervous trying new things, because I kind of rooted myself in Final Fantasy, and that makes it hard to feel comfortable going outside of that comfort zone. So it's tough, but I've got some plans. I've got some things to try out, some opportunities to look at, and I'm just gonna see how they pan out. I won't know unless I try, right? All right, the last question we're going to take from the Twitch chat is, what are you doing if you're not broadcasting? Where would you like to go on vacation? So it depends on the day of week. I'm a huge esport fan watcher. That's one of the big things I do outside of stream. And so for example, as I'm recording this, NALCS is on, TSM is up 1-0, they're 12k gold ahead, and they're pushing into CLG's base. And on weekends when I'm not streaming, I'm usually watching any matches I missed, or watching the matches that are still on. When it comes to the weekdays, I'm usually contemplating videos, what videos I do, writing out scripts like Count Up Cast. I'm usually doing that script very last minute because I'm, recording this and then I immediately go and do whatever on a Sunday. Tuesdays is pretty much stream right into State of the Realm, into eating, and then I sleep pretty early, so I don't really do anything. Wednesday, Thursday usually the same. Friday sometimes go out. Mel and I go out, maybe grab drinks with someone or go out to eat or go see a movie or something. Saturdays sometimes same deal, but a lot of the times it's kind of more of a chill day. Sunday, basically Friday, Saturday, Sunday is just sometimes I do things, and I don't do a lot of things. I'm someone with pretty narrow interests, and it kind of sucks. I mean, I like what I like, but it doesn't exactly make things very easy on people around me. So it makes it really hard for me to do very many fun things. I remember when we were in New Jersey back right before I moved, we went out karaokeing. I originally didn't want to go out karaokeing, but then we went out karaokeing. I had a good time. So I spend a lot of time working. And what little time I don't spend working is usually trying out foods or having drinks with friends or something along those lines. And there was something else I was going to add there, and I don't remember what it was. Oh, where would you want to go on vacation? That's right, that was the second part. I've always wanted to go to Europe and Japan. Any specific spot in Europe? Not really, but Italy and France and the UK, but I'll stay away from that now. I'll stay away from there for a little while. And Mel also recommended Iceland. She was telling me about Iceland. She's been to Iceland. She knows, some other people have recently gone to Iceland. And that place is really nice. So those are some places I like to travel. I didn't really start traveling until 2 years ago at all. And it's still only pretty much for conventions or being flown out places. So I'm still relatively new to it. And it's something that I got to get used to because I am an awful, terrible, just please God no flyer. I'm just ruined. I'm ruined at the end of a flight. It's not good for anyone involved. So yeah, those just gotta get used to that a little bit. But anyway, guys, that's going to be the last question from Twitch. Thank you for asking your questions this week. Once again, we have the videos here at the bottom. Same deal, they've been right here. And then I'm going to see what I can do. I have a few videos that I want to put out this week. Deus Ex videos. I want to put out a video about a zero... I can't remember the name right now. My brain is all mush. There's a few other videos that I've been working on that I want to put out this week, so be on the lookout for those as well. But anyway, guys, and don't forget, Friday night is Live Letter. It is a 14-hour broadcast. It means Live Letter. Marco will be translating it, so do not worry. We will have a translation video after the Live Letter this Friday. About the rest of the 14-hour broadcast, I don't know. We're not translating the whole thing. Marco's just translating the Live Letter. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information coming out of there because there's going to be a bunch of other events coming out of there. So by the next morning, I'll probably have to do a video about each event from the 14-hour broadcast, hopefully. And then hopefully we'll have the Rising event starting this week as well, maybe this Friday or next Tuesday or something like that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap things up on the YouTube side, and then I'm going to wrap things up on the Twitch side separately, so I spend a few extra minutes on Twitch after I finish recording this just to say goodbye and answer a few more questions and whatnot. So anyway, thank you everyone for watching this video. I will see you next week, where we will have a lot more information about patch 3.4, and until then, take care.